Alright, in the last video we brought in another layer of texture. So now we have this patina and then we have the tinfoil. So now we can experiment with all the things that we've talked about in the previous videos and even a couple more things. So first of all, I'm going to bump up the contrast in this, and I just got to the levels menu the shortcut way by doing Command L. And I probably want to be a little bit more towards the lighter side with this. Okay, so let's look at some things that we haven't tried yet. Um, well, first of all, with two layers, we need to be able to see down to the other one. So I'm changing the opacity on this one so that I can see down to the other one. Then, of course, I can put the color on top of that. I can also put the color on the bottom, which might give me a slightly different effect. So I could take the color, drag it down to here, and then I'd have to change the opacity on this layer. And now it's more about the top than it is about the colors below. The color below. And then you can also put a color on top of that. I'll just make a copy of this layer like that, put it on top, so you can see that it starts to become very high possibilities of you making something that's totally unique just by continuously monkeying around with this. Okay, so here's, and then let's do this. Let's take this. I just made a copy of it by holding down the command key when I dragged it, and let's this time take this version, since there's already one there, and let's blur this version a little bit. So with this layer selected, we're going to go to filter, we're going to go to blur, and we're going to select Gaussian blur, which is kind of a standard blur, and let's blur it up quite a bit. Okay, so there's a blurred version of that, and if we increase the opacity on this one, it becomes more about that blurred one and less about the ones that are below it. Let's see, what else can we try? Yeah, something that's definitely worthwhile checking out here are the blending modes. So right now, this layer, I'm going to turn this one off, but right now this layer is just blending normal, has a lesser opacity to it. In fact, let's, just so you can really see what's going on here, let's just work with one layer of texture and just one color below it. So if I change this from normal to dissolve, you don't see too much of a difference there. Whoop, that's because I did it on this. Let me undo that, go back to, change this to normal, go back to this layer, change that to dissolve, and you can see that's a little bit computerish. We can try darken, we can try multiply, color mode, and they all give just a slightly different effect, and it's just the way that the layers are working with each other. So I'm going to pause this and do what you would do at this time and just experiment till I get a texture that I kind of like, and then we'll take our next step and we'll use it. Okay, I just reordered the layers a little bit, played around with the opacities, and I think what I really like in here is putting a lot of blur on this what used to be patina layer here. So I'm just going to go with this. Now, Photoshop's become so friendly with Illustrator that we can just save this and use the PSD file. But if you're trying to conserve disk space and you're totally happy with this is the way you're going to go, you could flatten all the layers in here just by going to this flyout and selecting flatten here. But I'm going to leave it like this for now. So I'm just going to file, save this, then I'm going to open up Illustrator, and I'm going to show you how to import this. So notice I saved this as mixtexture.psd, which is a Photoshop document, and I'll pause this while I'm waiting for Illustrator to open. Okay, then inside Illustrator we are just going to create a new document, and I'm just going to make it 8.5 by 11. And let's say that our idea is this texture inside of something like initials. And so we'll just put it against a solid background. So size is letter, we'll just go with one single artboard for this. And for this, let's just say that we're going to have a background color on this project of yellow, and then we're going to bring that image over the top of it. So I'll click on my layers. I'll call this BG for background. I'll just make a box that goes over the whole entire back, and I will select a bright yellow color for that. Fairly bright. Now, a good idea would be to watch my videos on choosing colors, which definitely goes a long way to making sure that the colors will work together. But now let's go ahead. We're going to lock that layer since it's just there to be a background. We're going to create another layer, and we'll call this IMG for image, and that's where we're going to place our image. And to place an image in Photoshop, you just go to File, in Place, and then you just have to navigate to where that image is located. And I found the folder where it is. I just click on the image, click on Place, and it is going to ask me if I want to convert or anything like that, which I do not, so I'm just going to tell it to flatten the image, flatten the layers to a single image. That's because I didn't flatten it in Photoshop. Okay, so now we have this. So now we'll just create the artwork and that we're going to use this with. And I'm just going to use my initials. So I'm going to take the text tool, make it big enough so that I can see my initials. And then just move this into position. Hold down the shift key, make that just a little bit bigger, take full advantage. And now if you did need to go bigger than this and you need 300 pixels per inch, then you would have to go back into Photoshop and start over with bigger images. So always shoot your photos at a high resolution. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to use masking to allow only that bit of texture to show through here. So the way we do that is the mask just needs to be the top thing, which is because it's the last thing I did on this layer, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and select the image that's behind it, and then I'm going to go to object, clipping mask, and make, and that's the only thing that comes through there. And if we zoom in on here, now we see. So it gives you a much nicer look. It's very random in here. It doesn't look computerized except for the fact that you have a nice perfect edge. Which, let's just talk about that. Let's say that you wanted this to have kind of random holes cut in it where you could kind of see through the background, but you didn't want to go through all the work of maybe making these actual letters in Photoshop and erasing away little parts of the edge and holes through. What's a way that you could do that? Well, let's go back into Photoshop and let's try something here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to contour and use that to pick some random spot. Okay, so I'm going to look at this layer here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it, hold down the command key, drag it up to the top. I'm going to put its opacity at 100%, and then is try to find some hues that will seem somewhat, so let me select this one. Okay, here's it. We're going to erase away at part here, and we're going to use this tool by probably going for the darker shapes in here. I think this is going to work. Now I need to set this to uncheck contiguous, which will allow it to, so I need it to be fairly picky about the colors that it's going to select, so I'm going to give it a smaller tolerance. And then I am going to slightly offset this a little bit too, so it doesn't just pick the darker colors, because right now it might do exactly that. So I'm going to select this layer, hit the downward arrow key a couple times, then I'm going to make my selection in here, and now you can see there's all kinds of stuff selected, and I'm going to hit delete so that I can see what I'm actually erasing from here. It's going to take a couple seconds, but this will allow me to see what's happened. Now it looks like it's probably, if I hit Command D to see what it actually erased from here. Let's turn this blue layer on at full opacity. It looks like it has deleted quite a bit from it. But what the heck, let's try this. If it doesn't work, then what we would do is come back in here, maybe take this image in bring it back in before we bumped up the contrast on it and everything, and then it would make a smaller selection. But here's what we're going to do. Now you're going to want to save a backup copy of this because we're about to do some serious destructive editing here. So we want to back up to where we had that selection. So I'm hitting Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D. Actually, you need to go Command Option Z, Command Option Z. Just want to get right to the point where I still have that selection. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is flatten all the rest of this, assuming that it looks the way that it should. Okay, so I've selected all the layers but this one because I don't really need this one. I just used it to make a selection. And then I'm going to go merge layer. So it'll select all those layers that were together. It'll merge them. And now I need to get this image so that it is editable. And right now it's just a background layer. To release it from being the background layer, you simply double click on it and then click OK. Now I'm going to, with this layer selected, not the one that I made the selection from, but this one, I'm going to hit the delete key. And I'm going to be deleting all that information from the layer. So it's a pretty risky move, but I mean, luckily we have the ability to back up. And I think you're going to see I went a little bit too far, but that's the only way you can find out for sure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. I am going to save it. I actually can go Command D, get rid of that. And I'm going to go File, Save. And now we're going to go back into Illustrator. And we are going to update our file in there, and you'll see what it. Okay, and it didn't update automatically, so then what you have to do is go to Window, Links, because it's just linked to that layer, and then we're going to click on this option right here, Relink. Go back, make sure you have the right one selected, and again, just flatten. Okay, and what you're going to see is all those pieces that are missing are going to show up here. So this is what we have now. So quite a bit different look. The thing that's nice about this is it very much integrates with the background because we are seeing right through it. So I would probably go back and make a selection that shows just a little bit less of this, but I think you get the idea of all the different things that you can achieve here. And this is just one of many, many possibilities.